ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुतिरये। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. My humble pranams to all the assembled devotees. Happy Kartik month to all of you. And it's a honor to be with all wonderful devotees online. Kartik is a very, very special month. It is said to be Urja Vrata, means intense devotion. The glories of Kartik month is explained in both Padma Puran as well as Kanda Puran. Anybody observes this Urja Vrata, that too especially in Vrindavan. That's why Kartik month devotees and all would like to prefer to go to Vrindavan. So in this Kartik month, devotees are expected to do extra austerity, tapasya. Whatever we are doing, we should do little extra in Kartik month. Somebody is chanting 4 rounds, then they should try to chant more. And people who are chanting already should try to wake up in the early morning, before sunrise and chant. Devotees take different kinds of vows in Kartik month, like I will finish certain portions of Bhagavatam reading. I will chant fixed number of rounds every day. I will inspire and help new people to take up this vrata. So Kartik is very, very special and it's very dear to Krishna. In Kartik month, Krishna had performed so many pastimes. Varieties of pastimes Krishna had done. Krishna started grazing cows in Kartik month. Krishna started stealing butter in Kartik month. Krishna lifted Govardhan. Krishna gave liberation to the Yamala Arjuna trees, and many pastimes happened in Kartik. Very special. So Padma Puran says, even if an animal is part of some seva in Kartik month, that animal also will get liberated. The example, the story of a rat is said in Padma Puran. Rat got killed by the fire of a wick in a ghee lamp, and the rat died, but at the time of his death, rat could have had darshan of Krishna. So the rat also got liberated. So this is very special. Anybody who performs any kind of tapas in Kartik will be benefited. So every day, we are discussing different topics from Balalila. One very surprising question is how demons came in Vrindavan. Because generally devotees ask this question, Prabhu, he was chanting every day, and why this has happened to him? Why he has to go through this pain? Why this obstacle happened to him? He's a devotee, right? And Krishna is supposed to protect that devotee. And why this happened? Why that person met with an accident? Why this person, had to face this calamity and challenge? Why trouble for a devotee? Devotee is supposed to be well protected by Krishna. So this is a similar question. What demons have got to do with Vrindavan? Because all over scriptures, it is said, only pure devotees can enter Vrindavan. That is what is spoken everywhere. And Prabhupada said very clearly, our only business in Vrindavan is Krishna consciousness. So in Vrindavan, no nonsense. No other activity in Vrindavan. Only Krishna conscious. Prabhupada even chastised those devotees who were aimlessly roaming in Vrindavan. In the initial years, when Prabhupada took all the devotees to Vrindavan, and 7 days Prabhupada gave a lecture series, I think Nectar of Instruction, Upadeshamritam. So Prabhupada gave a 7-day series talk, but some devotees were missing, not attending the program. So Prabhupada asked what happened to them, and Prabhupada came to know they went around, seeing temples and visiting temples and all, and Prabhupada was not very happy. Prabhupada said, no roaming in Vrindavan. If you come, your program in Vrindavan should be very packed. No room for Maya, and that is over. Don't stay in Vrindavan, leave Vrindavan. This is what is Prabhupada. Prabhupada, even in Nectar of Devotion, he writes, devotees don't stay more than 3 days in Vrindavan. That's what Prabhupada said. So now when spiritual masters, they take devotees to Vrindavan, they make a whole plan, intense program, going around the places, taking darshan, praying to the deities very sincerely, then listening to Krishna Katha, chanting, and that's it, leave Vrindavan. Because Vrindavan means pure devotional service. If that is the situation, what demons have got to do in Vrindavan? How come demons come? Putana, Shakatasura, Trinavrita, Pralambasura, Agasura. What all asuras have got to do with Vrindavan? How they entered? This is a very similar question of people asking why devotees have to go through trouble. Why devotees have to face these challenges. There is a small difference in challenges for non-devotees and challenges for devotees. Challenges for non-devotees is part of their karma. Challenges for devotees, even though it looks like part of their karma, mostly it is for their purification. So when these demons come to Vrindavan, each demon represents some kind of a challenge which a devotee should come out of. Even though it may look like karma, when people suffer some consequences, it may look like karma. But devotees are not going through karma, it is for their purification. Each demon, when Putana came to Vrindavan, Putana represented pseudo-devotee. A person who looks like devotee but not exactly devotee. That is what Putana represents. That happens, sometimes we wear nice kantimala around our neck, then we have tilaka, good tilaka, and we enter temple, say Hare Krishna, and all that Vaishnava culture. At the same time, they don't chant Hare Krishna. Some of the people, some of the members, they don't chant Hare Krishna properly. Not even one single round. But they exhibit themselves to the outside world as a devotee. So Putana represents this. No duplicity in devotion. When we become bhaktas, no duplicity at all. We all have multiple faces. Very different faces we have. In front of devotees, we have a face. In private, we have another face. Duplicious. Our organization is called International Society for Krishna Consciousness. In our consciousness, Krishna should be there. Or whatever is there in your consciousness, Krishna accepts that. And if in our consciousness we have something not favorable for bhakti, then it is very detrimental, very poisonous. For example, a devotee had an argument with another devotee. Both of them had some kind of an argument and some kind of a hot debate or something like that, which did not end up well. It ended with a bitterness. Both devotees had some kind of argument. Then what happens the next day? This particular devotee is cutting vegetable for cooking for Krishna's bhoga, for offering for Krishna. So while cutting the vegetable throughout entire program, he is thinking about the other devotee. That person is not very good. He argued with me like this. He has hurted me. He is very egoistic. Next time when he comes, I am not going to forgive him. I am going to give him back. I will give a nice sauce to him. How can he be a devotee like this? So all these things going on in his mind, and he is cooking for Krishna. After 1 hour, he made beautiful feast for Krishna. Nice, all kinds of varieties, juices, cakes, ice creams. A wonderful feast he has offered to Krishna. Now, knowingly or unknowingly, this personality has offered 2 things to Krishna. One is the physical bhoga which he has made, food which he has cooked for Krishna. And the second, whatever he has cooked in his mind. He has made a preparation in his mind. And what was going on? Something bad about a fellow devotee. This is not right, that is not right, he shouldn't have done this, he shouldn't have spoken like this, that, blah, 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 blah. He has made another thing in his mind. So when he offered to Krishna, 2 things were offered to Krishna. One is the physical, another is a mental preparation. Since Krishna accepts Bhavagrahihi Janardhan, Krishna is explained as Bhavagrahi. He will accept whatever is there in your bhava, in your consciousness. Krishna will accept that. So, because Krishna accepts that bhava, he is going to accept what we have cooked in our mind. Physically, we had cooked a nice bhoga, and mentally, we have cooked a blasphemous meal against a devotee. And Krishna is going to accept that mental thing first. So it's very offensive. So Krishna doesn't accept that physical bhoga. Lord is very merciful. Lord will make it pure, but Lord will not make it prasad. So the bhoga will become a pure food. It will not become prasad because Krishna is not accepting it. Why Krishna is not accepting it? While cooking, you have blasphemed a devotee, mentally meditated so wrongly about a devotee. So Krishna is not going to accept. But he is merciful, he will purify it. It has become a pure food, but it has not become a prasad. And Krishna explains this very clearly in Bhagavad Gita. There are 2 shlokas in Bhagavad Gita. One says, how food becomes pure. Yajñasishtashinah santo muchyante sarvakil bishai. How food becomes pure. Then in another shloka, Krishna says, if you offer with love, then I will accept it. Then it becomes prasad. So 2 different things. There is a beautiful Leela in Chaitanya Charitamrita. What brahmachari, very simple kind of tapasvi, austere brahmachari. He was sitting. Lord Chaitanya left Navadvip and all. So this brahmachari was feeling very intense separation from Lord Chaitanya. Feeling that viraha, that separation, the Lord had left me. So mentally he sat down and he started meditating that I am receiving Lord Chaitanya to my place. And there are full of, I have made a pathway. He is thinking mentally. And the pathway is full of gold and diamond and ruby and emerald, sapphire, coral, pearl, navaratnas. So he has paved a royal road because it's a mental thing. You don't have to buy anything. So he paved a royal road mentally with all these navaratnas and all the jewelries and everything. And he was simply meditating. And Lord is walking on my royal road. And people are doing chamara, waving chamara for him. And it is so cool. And there are trees on the both sides. He's simply meditating. And his meditation was over. He opened his eyes. And to his surprise, Lord Chaitanya was really standing in front of him. And his body trembled out of joy. Mahaprabhu is really there. That means Mahaprabhu has accepted his meditation. He has accepted his prayer. That Lord Chaitanya came to him. Whatever he has thought mentally in a very pure way, Lord has accepted it. Then his body started trembling. He became joyful. And he fell flat at Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet. Then he found there was blood from Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet. Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet was bleeding. Then he was like shivering. Mahaprabhu, what has happened to you? Why there is blood? Then Mahaprabhu said, it's like you made a pathway with all stones. All ruby, coral, emerald, all that navaratna, but they are not soft like flower petals. So the stones bruised me. See, the Lord accepted it. And this is called the Katvanga moment. Katvanga Muhurta. Bhagavatam says, Katvanga attained liberation in one moment. And that moment is called Katvanga moment. Because Katvanga Maharaja came to know that he is going to live only for a moment. He asked the Devas, how much life I have got more? And they said, you are going to die in a moment. So that's all? Am I going to live only for a moment? Yes, you are going to only live for a moment. Then immediately Katvanga got into deep meditation, thinking about the Lord, chanting his holy name, praying so intently, ardently. And that one moment of bhakti gave Katvanga liberation. So whatever we think mentally, intensely, Krishna accepts. So these demons who come in Vrindavan, and all this arrangement of the Lord for the purification of devotees. We have all these vices in our heart. You know, Kaliya represents cunning. You must have discussed about Kaliya yesterday. Kaliya must be like, Kaliya is cunning. A devotee should never be cunning. You know, not even diplomacy should be there with a devotee. Okay, leave diplomacy, leave cunning. Diplomacy should not be there. Okay, at least to some extent diplomacy is accepted. Cunningness, what do we achieve from that? We show something and we are something else. Sometimes we behave like as though we are a very mature and experienced devotee, which we are not. We are struggling with our anger. We are not able to control our anger. Sometimes we are struggling with emotions. So in Krishna book, today that is the topic. Extinguishing that forest fire. So in that chapter, Parikshit is asking, who is Kaliya? Why Kaliya came to Vrindavan? And why Kaliya poisoned? Who is he? And what is all this Leela? What is the story behind? And Shukdev Goswami is explaining the story behind Kaliya. It is cunning. Kaliya was very cunning. So, long back, Garuda, the carrier of Vishnu, a great Param Vaishnav, Garuda was always carrying the Supreme Lord on his shoulder. He's like his Vahana. Whenever Lord wanted to go somewhere, Garuda is there immediately to carry. That's why in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, Garuda is worshipped as Alvar, Garuda Alvar, who is also a very main representation of Balaram. Garuda Alvar Sannidhi. They have temples for Garuda. Very glorified devotee of the Lord, Garuda. Once he had a slight ego. Garuda thought, because the ego is never good for a devotee. So Garuda had this thought, I am carrying the Supreme Lord all the time. I am carrying him. I am a chosen one. I am a special one. Devotional service is supposed to make us humble. But sometimes, unfortunately, devotional service makes us proud. I have done so much. I am the master. I am the hero. And Krishna doesn't like pride in devotees. So Garuda thought like, I am the carrier of the Supreme Lord all the time. So Lord smiled and Lord wanted to correct Garuda. So Lord said, Garuda, there is going to be a churning of the milk ocean now. So why don't you just go, fly, bring Manthara mountain, Manthara Parvata, Manthara mountain, and keep it in milk ocean. And Garuda said, okay, I'll do it right now. And he flew. And he was trying to lift that mountain, Manthara mountain. He tried so hard, he couldn't even shake the mountain. Finally, he became so upset, he came back with a long face and he came back and said, Lord, I failed, I couldn't. And Krishna asked, Are Garuda, you are not able to lift the mountain? You are very powerful. What happened to you? Come, let me see. So Lord went there. Then Lord said, he asked all the demons and all the devas to climb the mountain. And all thousands and thousands of devas and the demons, they climbed the mountain. And Krishna easily lifted that mountain. Then he sat on Garuda and said, Garuda, fly. And Garuda flew. And Garuda was wondering, I was not able to shake that mountain, but right now I am carrying Krishna. And Krishna is holding the mountain in his palm. And there are demons and devas on top of the mountain. And how is that it's possible for me to fly? Then Garuda realized it is simply the action of the Supreme Lord. Lord makes us do, and we are doing. And what is there to be egoistic in that? In Tamil Nadu, in India, there is a place, heard called Nagarkoil. Near in Nagarkoil, there is one Krishna temple called Parakkai Madhusudana Swami temple. Parakkai means it's Paravai, Parakkai is Garuda. So when the deity installation was happening, when all the priests were conducting Havan, Yajna, Yagam, and the deities are there and everything, and all the chanting and the prayers and the puja and everything was going perfectly. And suddenly the Supreme Lord appeared. Narayana appeared with a Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, Lotus, club, all that flower, maze, and Lord appeared so handsome like bluish black cloud, and all his eyes are extended up to the ears and so handsome. Lord just appeared there. The moment Lord appeared, Garuda's Murti was also there, Garuda. And Garuda saw, and the stone Garuda started flying. He wanted to serve Lord Narayana. The stone Garuda, the stone deity started to fly. Right? So very famous Garuda deity in this temple. The stone started to fly. So that is the seva of Garuda, very special. So Garuda, in a particular place, was regularly hunting for snakes. Then sometimes devotees can ask, how can Garuda, being a devotee, he eats snakes? Garuda is a devotee, but at the same time, Garuda is a eagle, hawk. So that's his food. The snake is his food. So Garuda will go to the pond and he will eat snakes, and sometimes, out of play, he will kill some other snakes, not for eating, just for mere fun. He will kill snakes. That created a trouble there. So the head of the snake, the leader of the snakes, came and discussed with Garuda and said, don't disturb us. What do you want? And Garuda said, I need to eat snakes. That's my food. Okay. The snakes agreed. We will give you one snake per day, and don't disturb anybody else. You should not kill anybody else. We will give you one snake, some kind of an agreement. And Garuda said, okay, agreed. And every day he will come and pick one snake and go, and that's it. Everything was peaceful. He was not troubling them, and they were happy. They were offering one snake per day. And Kaliya was there in that group, in the snakes group. And slowly the poison started accumulating in the head of Kaliya. The snakes accumulate poison in their head. And scripture says, and that poison, if it is not used for many, many years, the poison freezes and becomes a jewel in the snake's head. And that jewel is called Manikam. That's why they say Nagamanikam. This Manikam, it's a very special and a rare jewel. So only very selected snakes will have this jewel, because their poison has accumulated and frozen and become a jewel. So these snakes are very rare. So the poison was slowly accumulating in Kaliya's head. And Kaliya was thinking, I am very special. I am arrogant. Why I should obey to anyone in this world? I am my own master. I am my own Lord. Why should I obey to someone? Why should I listen to someone? These are all the mentality of egoistic people. Devotion means humility. Bible says, humble and meek can seek the God. Only a person with vinaya, humility, can understand the details of devotion. Only he can taste the nectar of devotion. So humility is an ornament of a devotee. So Kaliya was very arrogant and he was thinking, why should I obey to someone? Am I in any way inferior to this hawk, this Garuda? If he is a leader of the birds, then I am the leader of snakes. Why should I obey to him? So if he thinks so powerful about himself, Kaliya should have fought with Garuda. But what Kaliya did, every day stealthily he will come, and whatever offering is kept for Garuda, that one snake per day, Kaliya will eat and go. And other snakes are thinking Garuda has taken and gone, and Garuda is wondering, where is my food? My food is missing. This Kaliya will go stealthily, cunningly, and he will steal that eat of the snake and go. So Garuda started complaining. He said, you people didn't offer me. And the snake said, no, we offered you and you ate. And nobody knew what happened to the snakes. Then Garuda found out Kaliya is stealing the snakes and eating of himself and putting the blame, putting it on Garuda's head. Then Garuda fought a battle with Kaliya. So this is very cunning. If Kaliya is very brave and very powerful, then he should have fought with Garuda directly. But he was doing this cheating, Then there was a severe fight between Kaliya and Garuda. And Kaliya's snake ran, fled that place, left that place, because wherever he goes, Garuda is going to hunt him down. So he was wondering, where can I go? Where will I go where there is no Garuda? Then he understood this Kaliya Ghat, this Vrindavan, this is the place where Garuda won't come. He understood that. And immediately Parikshit Maharaj is asking Shukdev Goswami, Garuda is a wonderful devotee of Krishna. And why Garuda cannot enter Krishna Vrindavan? How is that possible? That is why you see when you go to Vrindavan, I know maybe many of you would have gone to Vrindavan. You go to Vrindavan, you don't see Garuda Stamba anywhere in Vrindavan. There is no Garuda Stamba in Vrindavan. Why? Garuda cannot enter. You go to any temple in India, you will have that flag post, big flag post in front. Garuda. But in Vrindavan, there is no Garuda Stamba. Because Garuda cannot enter. Why Garuda cannot enter? Then Shukdev Goswami tells another story, what happened. So earlier Garuda used to come, and he will go to Yamuna and pick one fish and go. Garuda will come and eat the fish and go. Right? So Shaubhari Muni, there was a powerful Muni. He assumed the form of a fish. Shaubhari Muni assumed the form of fish, and he was deep inside Yamuna and meditating, And he assumed that form of fish and he was meditating, on impersonal Brahman or whatever it is. And in his meditation, somewhere he thought he is also a fish. And all the fishes are my brothers and sisters. They are my community. And it is my duty to protect them and things like that. So, this Shaubhari Muni assumed the form of a fish and very deeply inside Yamuna meditating for years. And one day when Garuda came and picked a fish, pretty big fish, so Shaubhari became very angry with Garuda and cursed Garuda. If you ever enter Vrindavan, you will die. I curse you to die. You should never enter Vrindavan. So when Shaubhari cursed Garuda, Garuda also very obediently said, okay, I will not enter, sorry for the trouble. I don't want to disturb a person like a rishi like you. You are very powerful and you are a sage. I don't want to disturb you. I am very sorry. Begged forgiveness and Garuda never entered Vrindavan. But Krishna was not very happy with Shaubari Muni. How can you curse my devotee? My devotee did not do any mistake. He didn't trouble you. He didn't trouble anyone in Vrindavan. How can you curse Garuda not to enter? Krishna was not very happy with Shaubari Muni. That is why we should never judge devotees. Externally, we may feel that particular devotee is doing something wrong. We should humbly approach him and ask him, why are you doing and I am not able to understand? That he may explain. Even after explanation, if you are not convinced, you simply pay obeisances and keep away. Don't think bad about him, because Krishna lives in his heart and Krishna will feel offended. So it's very, very important. So Krishna was not very happy with Shaubari Muni, and he was meditating, a sage, for thousands of years. And suddenly, after this aparad towards Garuda, Shaubari Muni could see two fish mating in front of him. When he was meditating, two fishes were copulating, mating in front of him. And suddenly, all that desires arose in him, which was dormant, which he had controlled for days and months and years, simply came back. It is all because of that offense to Garuda Dev. So now we have shed away so many unwanted things and we have become devotees, chanting the holy name, serving Krishna, doing so many things. We have given up so many things, but the moment we offend a Vaishnav, all that will come back. All that will come back. We will lose Krishna. So when Shaubari Muni offended Garuda Dev, all that dormant, sleeping desire in his heart just arose. And immediately he left his meditation. The very second he left his meditation, he got up, woke up, straight went to the king and said, I want to marry all your 50 daughters. The king had 50 daughters, 50. And Shaubari Muni said, I want to marry all your daughters. And king was like, very powerful sage, very powerful yogi. He wanted my daughters and he got married. Shaubari Muni got married. And Shaubari Muni started living a life, household life with 50 queens. And gradually he fell from his spiritual practice. That is why we should never offend a devotee. So Garuda was not able to enter Vrindavan. So to enter Vrindavan is not very easy. Even Lakshmi Devi could not enter Vrindavan. Shiva sometimes was not able to enter Vrindavan. They all have to do severe tapasya. Mahalakshmi, Mahadev, Lord Shiva, Brahmaji, they were all doing tapas to enter into Vrindavan. Not easy. Only a pure personality can see Vrindavan. So you must have discussed the story about Kaliya yesterday. Then, Kaliya became more and more arrogant in Yamuna. Already he was arrogant and cunning. After coming to Yamuna, he knew that Garuda will never come. That is his only enemy, can't enter. So he grew more and more powerful and arrogant and he started poisoning the waters of Yamuna. Then you know that story. Devotees came, the calves died, the gopas fell unconscious. Then Krishna heard Kaliya is poisoning the waters, poisoning Yamuna and his dear cows, because cows are very dear to Krishna. That is why he has named everything. His place is Goloka. It's in cow's name. Govardhana, Gopala, Gokula, Govinda. All in cow's name, because cows are very dear. When Krishna was very angry against Indra and Krishna wanted to punish Indra, Indra went and surrendered. He went and surrendered to Surabhi cow and told Surabhi cow, you please come and protect me. And Krishna was very angry, waiting for Indra to punish him. Then he saw Surabhi. The moment Krishna saw Surabhi, Krishna became so happy, smiling, and said, "My dear mother, why you have come all the way from heaven? What seva can I do for you? Is there anything I can do for you?" And Surabhi said, "Krishna, I didn't come alone. Somebody is hiding behind my tail." And Krishna saw, who is that? Indra. So all the anger against Indra just disappeared because Krishna could see Surabhi cow. So when the calves died out of poison from Kaliya and Gopas were lying unconscious, Krishna became very angry against Kaliya. So if you go to Vrindavan, you can see that beautiful place on the bank of Yamuna, Kaliya Ghat. So in that banyan tree, one of the branch was like low, lying low on Yamuna. So Krishna climbed that tree, went on the branch, then immediately, he tightened his dhoti. Very beautifully it is narrated in Krishna book. Krishna stood on the branch and he tightened his dhoti, took the flute and tucked in his dhoti. There also he has hold the flute. On another side he has got the cow bugle, the horn to make noise. He has tucked that. Another cloth, red color, he tied on his head with a peacock feather and everything. Very angry. And Krishna ran on the branch which was lying low, ran to the tip and pushed himself and flew up in the sky, and dived. So all the Gopas and the friends, they were all like, and they were like cheering up, "Krishna, Krishna, Hari, Krishna, Hari, Krishna." And Krishna simply disappeared into Yamuna. By the time one Gopa went and informed the parents, some of them said that the cows are dead, the Gopas are unconscious, this poisonous Kaliya has polluted the whole of Yamuna. The Nand Baba, Yashoda, they all came running. Krishna jumped inside Yamuna, what will happen? And they all came running. Rohini Mata, Yashoda, Nand Baba, Upananda, Sunanda, and all the Vrajvasis, they were all standing. And there is no movement at all. The Yamuna water is still. No Krishna, no Kaliya, nothing is seen. Nobody is seen. And Yashoda is screaming, "My dear Krishna, my Lala, what happened to you? What happened? Please come out." And Balram is there and boys are there. But they know Krishna will easily defeat Kaliya because they have seen every day. Krishna one day killing Putana, another day killing Bakasura, every day. It's a daily program. So the Gopas know Krishna will definitely kill Kaliya and come out. But the elderly Gopas were all, Yashoda Mata by the time fell unconscious and Rohini is holding Yashoda Mata. They're all crying. And suddenly with a heavy noise, a giant serpent, a black one, came out of Yamuna. A huge one. And that beautiful tiny Krishna is in the middle. The snake has coiled completely Krishna, and the Kaliya had 1,000 heads. Imagine a snake with 1,000 heads. And Krishna is dwindled in between by the coils of Kaliya. After seeing this, Yashoda screamed, "My dear son." They thought it's like Krishna is finished. And the Gopas started falling unconscious. Even boyfriends were scared. Okay, it looks like Kaliya is very powerful. But Balaram was smiling. Balaram knew it was all a Leela. And he was enjoying the Leela of Krishna. And when all the elderly Gopas were falling unconscious and screaming, and all of a sudden Krishna slipped from the coils of Kaliya. Zup, he flew up in the sky and he danced and landed on Kaliya's head. Kaliya has got 1,000 heads. So he will use the other head to come and bite Krishna. So Krishna will jump from this head to whichever head is going to come and bite, he will jump on that head. And from that head to another head, the another one, the another one, another one. So in this way, Krishna was dancing on 1,000 heads of Kaliya. Stamped and danced and danced and danced till Kaliya started spitting poison. Nataraja Raja Narthanam. Nataraj is Lord Shiva. He is the king of dancers. He can dance very beautifully and all like that. Lord Shiva, Nataraj. So here Krishna is called Nataraja Raja. He is the king of Lord Shiva in dancing. Nataraja Raja Narthanam. So he was dancing from one head to another, to another, to another, jumping from one head and up in the sky and whirling, and Gopas were all cheering up. Even Devas appeared in the sky. Devas were showering flowers, Pushpa Vrishti, seeing this beautiful Leela of Krishna dancing on Kaliya. Lord Shiva appeared in the sky and started banging his damaru, his drum, boom, 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 like that. Mother Saraswati started playing veena. Whole orchestra was going on up in the sky. And all the snakes were trying to bite, and Krishna was like jumping from one head to another, to another, to another, to another. And they were enjoying that Leela. So Krishna danced and danced and danced so much slowly by hitting again and again and again and again on Kaliya's head. Kaliya started spitting blood, and he was about to die. Then immediately all the Nagapatnis appeared, the wives of Kaliya. They all prayed, Krishna, you are the master, you are the Lord. You are very merciful, you have forgiven all kinds of sinners. Our husband is an arrogant, person, please forgive him also. And Kaliya also prayed. Then Krishna told Kaliya, I am not killing you. Don't trouble anybody hereafter. Please leave this place and live happily with your wives. So Kaliya went to South America, Fiji Islands, South America. So Fiji Islands, that's the place where Kaliya went. So even today, there is a 3,000-year-old Kaliya Krishna temple in Fiji, 3,000-year-old temple. So Kaliya went there. Then he became a devotee. He always carried the lotus feet on his head. Like we carry the tilaka. Tilaka is lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So Kaliya permanently had the lotus feet symbol on his head, and he became a wonderful devotee there. Kaliya Krishna. So Krishna came out. His body was so chill in the waters for so long. Days and days, so like hours and hours he was in water with Kaliya dancing. So body was so wet and chill. So the mothers came and embraced Krishna. For them he is just a 4-5-year-old boy. A small, beautiful, cute looking, handsome boy. Kasturi tilakam lalata falake vakshastale kaustubam nasagre navamautikam karatale venu kare kankanam sarvange harichandanam sulalitam kantecha muktavali gopastri pariveshtito vijayate gopala chudhamani. Small boy. So gopis were all hugging and embracing. The mothers were hugging, and that became very late in the night that day. So they decided to sleep there on the bank of Yamuna. So all the Vrajvasis, they lied on the bank of Yamuna. Imagine how nice it would have been. The moon, they could see a moon up in the sky, and they were talking and eating berries and fruits, and they were dancing and singing, and all the marigold, mallika flowers, jasmines and beautiful nikunjas, all of them dancing and singing, and they slept on the river bank. And in the dead of the night, they started feeling some kind of warmthness. Same day, it is, challenge after challenge. In the daytime, he killed Kali, he punished Kaliya, and night there is a forest fire. They were sleeping on the bank of Yamuna, and Krishna could feel the warmthness, and Krishna suddenly woke up. And all the Gopas woke up and they saw there's a forest fire. There's a forest fire. There was fire everywhere. And they all surrendered to Krishna. Same day. and Krishna extinguished the forest fire. Then few days passed away, nobody thought much. Then Kamsa sent the next asura called Pralambasura. Kamsa had a whole collection of asuras, Putana, Shakadasura, Agasura and all. And Pralambasura, he knew he can't enter Vrindavan easily, so he assumed a Gopa's form. He assumed a Gopa's form. So Krishna saw Pralambasura, a new Gopa coming. Krishna understood that's a demon, Asura. But even Balaram could not identify. Balaram thought a new Gopa has come and all the friends, Arey, so handsome you are, so huge you are. Where are you? Which village? Who is your father? And which clan you are, which community you are. And all the boys were hugging Pralambasura. Even Balaram was started playing with Pralambasura. And except Krishna, nobody knew he was a demon, including Balaram. So Krishna understood he has come. Okay. So what they did? They made 2 armies. And Pralambasura is very sure somehow Krishna will identify him. So Pralambasura, what he did, he acted as though he's a friend of Krishna. He was like acting as a friend of Krishna. So the Gopas divided into 2 parties. One Balaram's party, another is Krishna's party. So whoever has lost should carry the winner on the shoulder and run. This is the game. And Krishna's party lost. So, Pralambasura is supposed to carry Balaram and run. Different people carried different people and run. Krishna carried somebody else, and so now Pralambasura is supposed to carry Balaram. And Pralambasura started running slowly. He started running. And Balaram was talking chit-chat and all. And the whole intention of Pralambasura is to kill Balaram somehow. Then he was running. And Pralambasura asked, Balaram asked, Arey Pralambasura, where are you from? What is your name? Which is your village? And he was chatting. But Pralambasura was not answering. He was running very speed, and slowly he gained his speed and he was running like wind. Then Balaram became suspicious. And Pralambasura is trying to take Balaram away from the crowd, away from Gopas, somewhere deep. Then Balaram, became little suspicious. So Balaram, who is Balaram? He is Adisesh, he is Sankarshana, he is Ananta, he is everything. So Balaram started becoming heavy. And Pralambasura was feeling why suddenly Balaram has become very heavy and he couldn't run that fast. Slowly Balaram started becoming heavier and heavier and heavier. And Pralambasura started growing in a gigantic, massive demon size. Pralambasura is growing and growing and growing, becoming big. And Balaram is becoming heavier and heavier and heavier. And Pralambasura was finding it difficult to run. Balaram took a fist and gave one blow and Pralambasura said, Pralambasura died. That is all. Balaram took a fist. Is very powerful Balaram. Haladhara, Baladevji. Bala he is. Strength. Gave one knock on Pralambasura. Said Pralambasura fell down dead. And the Gopas came and they saw there was like huge demon lying down with his skull crack open. Blood everywhere. Right? So it's all very interesting pastimes. So what do we learn? So from this pastime, Kaliya is cunning, very cunning. Cunningness doesn't have any room in Krishna consciousness. Kaliya is arrogant, overprided. These are all not good for bhakti. Only a humble person can attain the lotus feet of Lord. So we should pray constantly, chant the holy name of Krishna very intently, that we should also become humble as Goswamis wanted. So happy Kartik month to all the assembled Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna.